Hi, fifth graders. We're here for our Fantasy Book Club session 11, where we are going to be talking about how your characters in your fantasy books are very complicated. I think oftentimes when we're thinking about characters, we want to believe that a character is all one way, like they're all good. Or if we're talking about a villain, then that villain is all bad. But in reality, everyone and all of our characters are complicated and they're they might be mostly good, but they might have a little bit of bad traits in them or things that they're struggling with. Same thing with the villains in our stories. We'll think about those as being all bad, but really, they do have some good traits in them as well that we need to recognize and look for. And this is exactly the same way that real life works. I think most of us want to believe that we're all good on the inside ourselves, but in reality, we all have things that we struggle with, and we all have things that we're not that great at, or traits that we're kind of embarrassed about, or maybe we don't like to share with other people. And so um, that's what we're going to be thinking about today with our fantasy book club characters, is thinking about how they're complicated and that they're not all just one way. So our learning target today is that characters are complicated and they are usually more than one way. Experienced readers are alert for the character flaws in the hero and the admirable traits in the villains. So for my example, I thought about Harry Potter, and first what I did is I just went ahead and I wrote down all of the character traits that I would use to describe Harry Potter. So those were brave, caring, protective, independent, strong, not afraid to speak his mind, righteous, and friendly. So those are the ones that when I think of Harry Potter, those are the character traits that come to mind. Those are kind of the most obvious. But in thinking about our learning target, I know that Harry Potter he is these ways. These are his character traits. However, he might be a little bit, another way as well, or kind of an opposite trait as one of these that's written down. So what I thought about is, I thought about how I said that he was independent. And yes, we always think that being independent, being able to do something on your own is a good thing, which it is, but there are some implications with that. So I wrote, but in being independent, sometimes Harry thinks he can do it all on his own, when in reality, he needs help. Over and over again in the series, his friends have to stop him and remind him that he needs their help, that he can't do it all on his own. Without his friends, he wouldn't be able to accomplish all that he does. Yes, he is the only one that can take down Lord Voldemort, but he needs help along the way to overcome the many obstacles he faces. And I think this is something that Harry struggles with in all of the books in the Harry Potter series, is that, yes, he is independent and he can do things on his own, but that's not always the best way. And so that is something that he struggles with and that he needs to work on. And that isn't, necessarily a fantastic trait about him, is that, he wants to do everything on his own, when really he needs his friends and he needs to depend on other people for help. So again, our learning target today is thinking about that characters are complicated and they are usually more than one way. Experienced readers are alert for the character flaws in the hero and the admirable traits in the villains. So this is your task of what to do, is that you need to consider a character in your book and what character traits they have. So maybe you think about the main character, or maybe you think about the villain in the story, or somebody else in your story. Just pick a character. And like I did, go ahead and write down the character traits that that character has. Then I want you to think about some of their character flaws or opposite traits that they have in addition to the most obvious ones. And I'd like you to record your thinking in your reading journals. And when you've done that thinking and you've written it down in your reading journals, go ahead and send me a picture. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you in book
Hey,
clubs.
fifth graders, it's Miss Olson, and we're going to do another opinion writing lesson today. Continuing on writing reviews. Some of you are using products, some of you are doing places that you love, others of you are doing like different types of media, and so we're going to continue to learn about that. In today's lesson, we're going to specifically be focusing on hooks. So in our last lesson, we talked about having a good hook and having summary, those were things that we noticed are different about writing reviews in comparison to just straight opinion writing. So these were some of the hooks that we looked at the other day. So first one was for the restaurant called the Stew Pot, and it started out with, are you looking for a great place to go for a dinner with friends? Do you want a place where you can sit near a crackling fire and feel comfy? You should try the Stew Pot. The second one we did was around the book Rainy Nightingale. So when you go to bookstores, do you sometimes look and never know what to buy? You can stop looking because Kate DiCamillo has a new book out that you must read, and it is called Rainy Nightingale. So those writers really did a great job on their hooks. They made me want to check out that restaurant, and they also made me want to look for that book as well. So that is today's target. We're going to be working on hooking the reader. And when we are hooking the reader, we want to make sure that we are persuading the reader to read our writing and to agree with your opinion. So part of that is continuing to hook the reader throughout our writing as well. But we're going to start off with just looking at hooking the reader at the start of our story. So yesterday I was watching TV and a commercial came on. This is not the exact commercial, but it also does a pretty good job. So as I'm sitting there, I see this commercial come on for chocolate chip cookies, and it is like it is speaking to me. Like I need to have chocolate chip cookies right now because of this commercial. So I'm gonna let you guys see what they do and how it really persuaded me to want those.
There are cookies. And then there are soft, warm, Pillsbury ready-to-bake cookies made with mini Hershey's Kisses. See the difference?
All right, so that video, that made me want to have cookies right now. So just as this commercial really hooked me into wanting to purchase or eat chocolate chip cookies, there are other ways that we can hook readers as they read our reviews that will have just the same effect. I was able to interview Gretchen and Brianna, and they had a common restaurant that they enjoyed going to. And so we're going to sit in and listen to their conversation about how they were able to develop a strong hook in writing a review for the restaurant Red Robin. So let's listen in.
How would you, if you were writing a review of Red Robin, how would you hook your reader? What would you start with?
We have been to a really great restaurant. Well, if you like great restaurants, you should go to Red Robin.
All right, that's a good start. Good. Okay, how can we add on to that? Brianna, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking a really juicy burger with juicy pickles, really cheesy cheese, and a great iced soda to go with it.
Oh,
They
nice.
have the best mac and cheese.
They also have bottomless fries.
Do you, like the common person, love delicious burgers, mac and cheese, and bottomless fries? Well, if you do, you should definitely check out Red Robin.
One of the things that I really appreciated about their hooks, that the hook that they developed at the end, was that it was speaking directly to the person reading it. So it was speaking directly to somebody who would be reading that and thinking, actually, yeah, I really do want to go to Red Robin. That sounds amazing. I do love juicy burgers. That's me. I'm that person, or I love mac and cheese. I want to go there. And so it was a great hook because it was asking you a question to see, do you relate to this? Is this you? And so they did a great job. Your assignment this week is to look back at the review that you wrote. There is a large Post-it note in there, and that is just for you to write a new hook for your review that really speaks directly to the reader, but also really hooks them in. And sometimes when you're writing a hook, just like in the video that we saw with Gretchen and Brianna, it takes 2 or 3 to really get your very best one. So kind of think through, what are some things that would make somebody want to either buy or go or want to experience what you have. And you can think about examples that come up in different commercials as well as the example that we watched with Gretchen and Brianna. So that is your job this week. You do not need to send a picture of your Post-it notes. We're just going to have one picture sent in this week. So as I said at the beginning, when we're writing reviews, we do want to hook our reader right at the start, but we also want to hook them throughout and keep them reading. We don't want them to just read the first paragraph and be like, I'm done with that. So we took this exact same one that we've looked at a few different times about the stew pot and went through and just highlighted where are areas throughout this review that keep me hooked. And so this one is an annotated version of it, and I'm going to go ahead and just read the parts of the hook. So right at the beginning, the are you looking? So it starts with the question and kind of sets you up. Do you want to place? So again, those questions are drawing you in. They're like begging for you to answer them. And then saying you should try the stew pot. Woodsy, for some people that's a hook that makes you want to go there, like the environment of it. And then a story that is relatable, right? Everyone's going to have a birthday, but this is also kind of like a shocking fact kind of thing. Like instead of a cake, it was a big onion. So something that kind of is like, tell me more about that. I don't know if I totally love it, but I'm curious. And then the chocolate fondue was amazing. And so then they connect it back to go there, back to your opinion, go there, don't wait. You should do it this weekend. So thinking about throughout your writing, how are you continuing to hook the reader in a way that makes them want to still keep reading your writing? All right. I look forward to reading your reviews, and we'll see you later.
Hi, 5th grade. It's Mrs. McMillan here with your McMillan Math Minute, or 10. I want to go ahead and go over what our target is and then give you a minute to go grab the materials you need. Remember, this will be Math Day 1. It's the blue pages. And our target is going to be, I can solve volume problems using length, width, and height. And I'm actually going to add a word to our target. So go ahead and grab this sheet. It's the first sheet. It looks just like this. It says boxes and banners. Up at the top, I've let you know that you need to watch this video, do your worksheet, and then you'll be sending me a picture. So go ahead, grab a pencil, grab this sheet, meet me right back here. Go ahead and pause. All right, so you should have grabbed your sheet and your pencil. And the word I want to add to this is I can solve volume problems using length, width, and height efficiently. So I'm just going to write that in to my target. Efficiently meaning, sure, I could probably do some repeated addition to solve these problems, but that's going to take a really long time. And so we're going to talk about some of the different ways we have solved these problems. So I can solve the problems efficiently using length, width, and height. The 3 steps you're going to take today are you're going to sketch a picture, you're going to write an equation, and you're going to solve. So I want to make sure you're doing all 3 of those steps. And when you finish that, I want you to snap a picture and send that to either myself or Mrs. Leibel, either on Remind, on Teams, or via text. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on our problem today. So I'm going to make up a problem that we're going to practice together. And we're going to say I'm getting a fish tank. And the dimensions, so I'm going to first draw that picture. And my dimensions of my fish tank are 24 is the length, 8 is my width, and 12 inches is my height. And I want to figure out what is the volume of my aquarium. That'll let me know how many fish can I put inside. So one efficient way to do this problem is to figure out the base, or what would one layer one floor, if you might, like on a building B. I'm not going to go and grab these little cubes from school and start making 24 by 8, right? I actually probably wouldn't have enough cubes if I did it that way. So instead, I'm going to use multiplication, and specifically, I'm going to use the standard algorithm to help me. So I'm going to use standard algorithm and find the base one layer of my total rectangular prism. And you can see my sketch is not great. Yours doesn't have to be either, but it helps us to visualize what's happening. So if I look at this problem here, I'm going to start with just the base. So what would one layer look like? Okay. So my first dimension is my length, or 24 inches in this case. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to write that here. And the second dimension to figure out my base is going to be the 8th. That's the depth or the width is another way to think about that. So my first step is to multiply 24 times 8. And I could write 8 plus 8 plus 24 times, but that would just take too long. So I'm going to go ahead and stack and go and do the standard algorithm. I'm just going to write it over here. 24 times 8. And we know that when we do the standard algorithm, we start and this number needs to be multiplied by all the digits on the top. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do 8 times 4. And we know 8 times 4 is 32. I'm going to go ahead and put that 2, regroup the 3. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So now I know that my base is 192 inches cubed. And remember that cubed because it's 3 dimensions. If I have 3 dimensions, it's cubed. Now I'm going to take that number, 192 inches cubed. I'm going to multiply that by the height, or the number of layers it would take me to build that. So 192 times 12. Okay, again, I'm going to think about multiplying both of these digits by these top digits. So if I have a 2 times 2, that's going to give me 4. 2 times 9, 18. Regroup that 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 1 is 3. And now I've multiplied all of the top digits by this digit here. I'm going to move over here to the tens place. Because it is the tens place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in a placeholder, just like we talked about last week, those placeholders, to make sure that I know I'm multiplying by 10 and not just another 1. So I'm going to put a 0 right there as my placeholder. And now I'm going to multiply this by all of the digits. So 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 1 is 1. I'd already used that. I could have crossed that out. And now I have 2 partial products. I'm going to go ahead and add those together. And I'm get 4. 8 plus 2 is 10. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 9 is 13. And 1 plus 1 is 2. My volume for my fish tank that measures 24 by 8 by 12 is 2,304 inches cubed. And I'm just going to put a little squiggle around that so I know where my answer is. Again, it's inches cubed because there are 3 dimensions. This strategy is much more efficient than continuing to add. I found the base and I multiplied that by the height. Another way to think about that is I multiplied length times the width times the height. The two volume equations we have are length times width times, there goes my pen. Happens all the time in class too. Length times width times height. Volume is length times width times height. I want you to go ahead and get out your paper. I want you to work on that right now. Today's problem is pretty easy. There's just one problem to do. Shouldn't take you too long. Remember, your focus today is I can solve volume problems using length, width, and height efficiently. I want you to sketch a picture, write an equation, solve the problem, and then I want you to send me a picture. Great job, mathematicians. Keep up the work. We'll talk to you later.